Hello and welcome to the Expat Pod. My name is James, your host, and today I'm joined by Tracy. And Tracy, you are Canadian and you live in Malta, is that correct? Do you want to share a bit about your story as a brief synopsis before we get into the main meat of the podcast?
Yeah, so I'm a publicist, and my husband and I own our own company, so we work remotely wherever we may be. We serve clients all over the world and other places, away from where we are. So we have been married 29 years this year, and we have a 20-year-old son and a 30-year-old daughter and a grandson. And our son is here with us in Malta, and our daughter and son-in-law have been watching from afar, and they are actually pretty much, decided they're ready to kind of say goodbye to Canada and join us here one way or the other. So they're looking at various, school stuff here and everything. Yeah, so we're I've had my whole family come and visit me. My mom's coming to visit me here. My dad's coming to visit me here. My stepmom's coming to visit me here. I want everybody to get really comfortable with it because it's the opposite side of the world and very, very different from Canada. But everybody who's come has, fallen in love with it. And they all seem to think that we made a good decision, even though we're, that much further away now. But they seem to think it's like we do that it's a good place for us.
Wonderful. And just which part of Canada are you from?
So I was born in Ottawa. My husband was born in Toronto. We grew up in Toronto, and we most recently lived in Hamilton for the last 8 years, which is where we still have a house with our daughter. Our daughter and son-in-law are living in it now.
Perfect. Well, we'll get into the main podcast, into section 1 then. So welcome to section 1 of the podcast, all about getting there. So Tracy, obviously you now live in Malta. If you wish to kind of share all the things you needed to kind of tick off or your kind of job list before moving to Malta. Obviously you said you went as a tourist and you fell in love with the place and then thought, okay, I want to live there. From that point, what was the kind of process like?
Oh my goodness. So last year, I think we sent the first initial email. We started investigating while we were here last year, spending 3 months here. Then we were like all the way back on. But just before we left, we started investigating the process. And I think we sent the first email to Identity Malta, now called Identitad, which is the residency stuff here. And we got an email back from them after we'd already left, and we're already back in Canada. So we came back here this time. We came in November. Literally the week after we got here, or October, I should say, the week after we got here, I started going through everything. I thought I'd make sure we had everything. It turned out, I didn't realize we needed his long form birth certificate, like names, both parents, as opposed to just his regular birth certificate. So that was going to be a problem. Then I ended up just thinking, how I'm going to get it here, but I ordered it to my house in Canada from Malta. It got to my house in Canada, so my daughter got it. And then I was blessed because finally, I've been trying to convince my dad to come visit us for like a year here, since the last time we were here. And then he finally said he'd come. So I got him the ticket. I was able to get him to go pick up the birth certificate, and he came with it. So then I had everything. But basically, I had to put together, if anybody who's moved anywhere knows, it's a whole lot of paperwork and double checking this and looking at forms. And I'm grateful that, Malta has a lot of this stuff in English on their site. I have a whole new respect for anybody who moves anywhere. I have no idea how people do it when it's their second language. You're trying to navigate government forms and 52 of these. Nobody's helpful in any government office. Even when they're helpful, they can only be so helpful. You have to figure it all out yourself. And so we had it all, we were able to figure it all out ourselves. And we had a friend here who was the previous consul general to Canada who kind of was able to advise me, what to do and stuff, which was good. But anyway, yeah, I figured it out and had our appointment. Now my husband, I was so happy, a week and a half ago, my husband got a little card in the mail, which is the Malta residency card. And we were all like, oh, look at it. Oh my gosh, look at it. And now we're waiting on ours. Mine is, I'm the wife of, we've been married 29 years and our son. But he is an EU citizen. He was able to just get it quickly. And then now we have to go through the proving that we are, which, sure, I don't know how hard it's going to be. We submitted the submission. So I don't know now if I'm going to get a card in the mail, if I'm just going to get a letter in the mail saying I've got to come and show them 900 more things, if I have to go back to Canada to get something, ultimately to get the final residency. But I've way past my Canadian visa time here, so now I'm here with a Malta ID card it's just not finalized, until they go through all of that. I've got my Malta ID card, I got my library card, I got my Malta doctor, I got my Malta dentist, now I got my Malta hairstylist, my Malta nail girl. And so now, I live in Malta.
List of priorities are ticked off, then it seems.
And the hair. And you know what? The gray, if you talked to me a week ago, it would have been gray up to here and no nails, because you know what? You're right. The list of priorities. And the first priority was going through, these are all tossed off now. But this was literally get the bank statements, get this, get a rental. We had to get a rental for a year. We didn't know we accepted. Then we had to get, international insurance for the whole family for the year. And then we had to, do all those things. So I checked everything off, and everything's checked off except get residency card and live in Malta. So those are the last two things. So got everything else done, and now I'm just waiting on the card.
Wonderful. And you mentioned just off camera briefly before, but the way you got in was through your husband his father was Irish, right? So you could apply for the Irish citizenship that way.
Which got him a EU, so that makes him a EU citizen, even though we weren't sure how that would work, because we have never lived, he's never lived outside of Canada. So he doesn't have any Irish paperwork. He has an Irish passport, but he doesn't have an Irish address. I don't even know what the European, he never worked in Ireland. He didn't have in Canada, we have social insurance, never even had that. So we didn't know. We were like, are they going to say, oh, no, you're not really Irish. That doesn't count. You don't live in Europe. That's what we kind of expected. But they were like, no, you got the Irish passport. So he went, not only that, we went there. So they're like, who do you want? Now here's how you vote in the EU elections. And he's like, what? Now we're going to vote in the EU elections. That's the pressure of the whole thing. But anyway, so we were lucky about that. But at first, before that, I didn't, we first started out with Malta. I thought maybe we'd have to come on the digital nomad. So I had researched the digital nomad, which they have a 1 year, which you can renew every year unless they tell you they can't. They have a digital nomad program, which is super popular, because Malta's really good. If you work from home, they've got all the Wi-Fi, super crazy, high tech, everything and all that. Even this super historical looking country, there were missed a day of internet. Oh, that's great. All that stuff is great. Yeah, so that's a way you can come in. And they also have a really interesting program where if you're a moneyed person, if you have enough money to buy property, it's not crazy compared to Toronto prices or Irish prices. Here, if you could buy, their thing is really low. If you buy property in the main island that's worth 380,000 euro, or in Gozo that's worth 320,000 euro, and you also, so if you can outright buy that property, and you also have a certain amount in the bank. And I think the amount in the bank is $500,000. But again, in Toronto, for example, if you're buying a property, it's $1 million for a townhouse. You're a little tiny thing here. So if you were able to buy property in Malta, you and your entire family actually get a passport. You get fast track to citizenship. You got EU citizenship. That's pretty great. So that's a way to do it. And then there's also a lot of people come here on you can come here on a 1 year work permit. But that's a bit different here. The way they have it in other places, it's kind of restrictive, and a lot of people here are looking for ways to make it, less, better for third country nationals here. Because the way they have it right now, people come in on a work permit, for if you're not a European, right? On it's related to a particular company in a particular job, and if you lose that particular job at that particular company, you have 10 days to get out of the country. So if you set up a life here and stuff like that, that's a little, but I guess, that's for people who are just coming here to work for a year. And that's, a single person, there's that, right? There's that way too. So they have a whole bunch of different, and then there's economically self-sufficient. And then there's if you want to retire here too, again, if you're not going to be remitting any pay back and forth, but they just need to see a certain amount of dollar amount in the bank. Or if not, they had a thing. It sounded like they wanted you to have 14,000 in the bank, but actually that wasn't the case. They just needed to see that you had at least that income, so a regular income from a regular source. So there's all kinds of ways, to come into Malta, and I highly recommend it.
Well, it's quite an extensive list you've just shared, and I'm sure if people did want to look into it, then we can put some links below for further reading, just to help. It sounds like there's several ways in. which is always useful. If you can afford to buy a house, that's a very, very interesting way of doing it.
That's an easy one if you can. I mean, like, that's sweet, but there's also a lot of ways for workers. There's, ways for students. Obviously, there's, I know there's some really good schools here, really good education system, really good medical schools. But here in Little Tiny Gozo, beautiful way to get yourself educated. A quiet, nice, quiet Mediterranean life, British school.
Yeah, it's great. And was there anything else you needed to do before you moved in terms of getting over? Was the accommodation, did you have that sorted, or did you stay in kind of short-term lettings until you got somewhere for the year?
Yeah, we stayed in the short term. That's the first thing we did here, even before we started before we could even start the residency, we had to get a place. And everyone says, don't do it online without coming and seeing, because there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of scams. In fact, on the expat page in Malta, or whenever people come in and say, hey, did you move to Malta? People will automatically say, hey, you're going to get like 15 things in your inbox right now. Ignore them. Just come to Malta and see, because there's a lot of scams and rental. So yeah, so we came here and we were just renting like a short-term, or like a vacation rental for 2 weeks. And while we were doing that, I was like, okay, we got to get in touch now with a real estate agent, like just for a rental, not to buy. And when I was trying to do that from home in Canada, everybody was saying, oh, just message me when you're here. I got the impression they get a lot of people saying like they're going to do this or that, and then maybe they don't end up doing it. So the agents were like, yeah, you know what, when you're here, let me know. So we just came thinking, okay. So by the time, we were like, okay, Saturday we made an appointment, and we told her to just show us a bunch of places. And she showed us like 4 apartments and 2 houses. And I said to my husband before we even looked at them, let's pick a place today, because the big priority wasn't to find, I know we could have waited and found a castle or whatever, like 500-year-old this or that, or place of the pool. But it's the big priority, because there's a ton of places that are gorgeous. I mean, you're picking like beautiful places, right? So if you see one gorgeous one, there's another even more gorgeous one, another. But I said our priority was to get an address, because we needed an address for that application. We needed not only an address, but we needed a year lease. Oh, and here's a tip to moving to Malta, which I don't know how it is where all you listeners are, but in North America, you just like you rent, like there's complications with renting, yet then obviously credit, all this stuff, blah, blah. You're renting with the like owner of the apartment or the leasing agent or whatever, between you and them, and that's it. Wow. We learned in Malta. So we made the real estate agent, like we would expect, took us to see the places, and we met the landlord, and all that's normal to us, right? And we like them and they like us, and we decide among us that we're going to rent, and that's all as I would expect in North America up to that point. But things that are different here, number one, everything, even if you buy a place, it comes furnished. And so definitely if you rent a place, it's furnished. In Canada, the rentals that are furnished are usually sketchy. They're usually like the lower income, or they'd be a student rental, or it's like it's very rare, unless it's like a business rental. I mean, it's some of it.
The furnished apartment.
Yeah, when you rent though, it's empty. Like 90% of the time, if you rent, it's empty. So that would have been harder moving it. But luckily for us, when you rent here, or when you buy, it's usually even when you buy, it's fully furnished. It's all done, right? So that's really weird. So that was, so number one, that was an interesting thing. But number two, so once we made the agreement with the renter, with the landlord, so now we have to submit to the housing authority. So, and that's really, so they're giving us a formal lease, which we're signing. And then that lease, the landlord has to submit to the housing authority. And we're like, okay, now, number one, first weird thing is when they're making up the contract, and I think this part's just traditional, not the legal housing authority part, but they're asking us, and we're 54, me and my husband, and they're like, okay, so we're making up the lease. So what are your parents' names? And we're like, our parents' names? Like, my dad's 78 and he lives in Canada. My husband's mom is dead. I said, my husband's mom died when he was 3. Oh, but do you know her name? Well, yeah. But so when they're making up the rental, they're putting in James Doran, son of Jane and Mary. Like, they're putting who your parents are. And I'm like, wow, it's like it's the 1500s. You know what I mean? Tracy Lamouri of Shakia, from the... So they literally have this in the lease. I told my parents, oh, I'm 54, but you're in our lease in Malta. And it's been submitted to the government, because then they submit to the housing authority, and you're waiting now. So not only do they submit your lease, which is the actual lease, but they submit and this is where it's done, the 8 pages of when they go around the house and talk about everything that's in the house. In this room, there's a wardrobe and a bed. So they submit the inventory to the government too, and a lease. And then it's not just on file though. You have to wait a week until it's approved. We're like, so the government could come and say like, no, I don't understand. I'm confused. Like, but sure, they're like, no, it's not going to work that way. It's fine. They come out with them like, but anyway, I guess it's good because in a way, like, I mean, I'm a good child, a landlord in homes. I'm a good tenant anyway. But it's true. You actually think, oh, we're going to make sure we don't mess up. We're not going to, if you have rented for a year here, you need to, like, you have to rent it for the first 6 months. And if you break the lease, you're paying for the first 6 months. Well, in Canada, you think, they don't care anyway. We're just going to go and whatever. What do you think of it? Well, here, you're not thinking that because the government that looked over it and approved, they approved this one. So next time, if they see my name again, if I walk out of this lease and they see my name again in that same department, they're probably going to tell the landlord, maybe you don't want, you know what I mean? There's like a more check and balance.
Like a rental credit score.
Right? I don't know if that's a case, but I was like, all right, I'll make sure I'm a good change. So that was weird. I didn't know that there's the housing authority that like approves. So these are the little things that are different that you would never, from any one country to any other country, say going to Canada, there'd be things they would be like, what? There's no furniture in that. I just rented a house and there's no furniture. That's crazy.
Well, wonderful. Well, I think that's a great way of ending this first section with that incredible anecdote about renting in Malta. And we can go into section 2 all about being there. So welcome back to the podcast, and section 2, all about being there. So Tracy, you elaborated a bit in the first section about what it's like to live there from a renting point of view. But if you could just cast your mind back to when you first arrived, as a tourist probably, what was your first impression? And then how did that differ when you kind of started living there?
My first impression, like a lot of people, and it's really sad that a lot of people see this as part of, like, people go to Malta, they go to St. Julian's, and it's like a resort, but it's not. It's like it's crazy Euro party town, James. It's St. Julian's, till 2 a.m, and like they want to throw alcohol in your hand, and you like, if you have one, they want to give you another one. Like that's St. Julian's, which is a really false impression of Malta. And a lot of the conferences are held there, so a lot of people go there for like their 10 days, and they may venture off and look at something cool, but they really have no idea of the country they're in, right? Because it's not like that. Like everywhere, it's actually a very religious, country. It's very, very Our Lady, very. And it's funny because I'm not a religious person, and it's so funny that I gravitate so strongly to it, to culture and everything here. But you really see, I don't see, like, I think I've learned here from what I see anyway is what I would think of as like super religious at home. It's not what super religious here is. It's not like at home I think of it. Some people are really intolerant or whatever. No, it's at the same time as a super religious here. It's like a beacon for like LGBT, weddings and stuff like that, which I was like, that's really like, it seems incongruous because they're super religious, right? But that and like what else that was different that I didn't expect. But anyway, you go out and then you leave that the drinking in St. Julian again. Then you leave St. Julian's and you see this like culture of like this 5,000-year-old goddess temples, from the Neolithic that are here to like the Baroque to the, you just literally call everything history. So my first impression was St. Julian's, and I just like the palm trees and everything. But really, as I came different times, I learned more and more about the spirit of the country and everything. I ended up in Gozo, which is about as opposite of St. Julian's as you can be on the planet. It's like I live in a little village in Shakija called Shakija. I learned how to pronounce these things now, Xewkija. And it's, a little from 400-year-old village, very quiet. I've learned, that siesta, like they have in Mexico, they have that here too. And it's not just when it's hot, they have it in winter. And everyone's like, well, you'll see why they do that later. But that was a huge adjustment. And you didn't see that in the big city, but really it's a true thing. But in like almost everything, except for like the 2 big malls, almost all the stores, everything local, it all is open from like 7 or 8 in the morning till noon, and then closed till 4 in the afternoon. So it's a big adjustment. But 12 to 4, that's always when I seem to want something, or when I think I should go get something. And I always remember, oh, man, So that's a huge adjustment. She's like, in terms of just the day, not a big deal, but it is sort of in the moment, it's the day to day. Oh, yeah, I gotta remember. I'm never like,
You got to plan ahead a bit more.
yeah, I got to plan ahead, so it's never like I'm never annoyed by it. I always like the differences, that I encounter, but it's always like, I forgot, dumb Canadian. That's right. Not the way it works here. Gets to go out at 3:00 and think you're going to go to the store.
Being there in terms of you've lived or you've experienced lots of different parts of the island, not just the Polish capital, but also all the kind of beautiful kind of small. It's only a small place, so you can do it in a week. Probably you can see everything.
You think so, but I've been here 6 times, and the main island is literally like 25 by 15 or something, and the Gozo is like 16 by 5. I've had friends here visiting from Wales, and they've been here a bunch of times, so they knew a bunch of places I hadn't been, and I literally discovered Schleswig Bay and the Inland Sea and this whole giant part of it that I thought I'd know the whole time. No, so I'm still. There's still stuff to discover, and then because there's history on top of history on top of history too. There's so many, you can just learn so much in terms of the different kind of museums and all that. So I've been joking, but not joking, that I've been doing a deep dive. I'm gonna know more than the Maltese soon, because I've been reading. I just read a 2,000-year history of Malta that went from the Neolithic all the way up to 1999. I didn't know. So I got to. Yeah, so I got to, and the funny thing was, the first 1,000 years was the first half a book, but no, the first 50. Anyway, from 1960 on was half of the book, because then it became a political history. So it was pre 1960 was most of this much of the book, and then after that it was yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I'm doing a deep dive into the history, the culture, the criminal justice history. I'm reading a book about executions in the 1600s now and 1700s, and that's telling me about there were, I didn't realize about how slavery works back then. All the Europeans were enslaving each other. There was Venetian slaves in Malta and Turkish slaves. You're reading all this when you read criminal history of a place, right? So I'm learning everything, about the food, everything. So I think it's important to kind of know where you're at. Now I got to learn more about I was telling them I need a book about the year 2000 to now. Who are the players that shaped the modern.
I don't even know about the journalist who got killed in the car bomb, was it, I think?
Daphne, absolutely, yeah. 2017, I believe it was, only 7 years ago. So I say, yeah, as much as I love Malta, absolutely true. That's one of the first, or the only thing we know in Canada is a Daphne Kuna. And she, and interestingly, there is still a memorial to her with fresh flowers every day. And it's right across from the halls of justice or the courthouses in Valletta. And at first they were removing, the government was removed. There's the same government still in power, not the same prime minister, but there's still court cases going on that are, various players and everything. And that particular prime minister, he was tied to that in whatever way, because I'm still only learning all of it, but he's kind of being rehabilitated now in terms of making his way back into politics, seeing what it. So yeah, so that's an interesting thing about Malta. But and a lot of what I'm reading too in that book about the 2,000-year history, and I also want to read a more recent one, but it was starting to touch on all the players from the last 50 years, and it gave me a much more understanding, because I only had the barest bones of it. There's a Labour Party, and there's PN, and so the PN are conservative, and the Labour gets Labourish, which I was thinking about along the Canadian lines, the British line, which is sort of true. But then there's also, it's a different part of the world and a different history. And so when I was reading about the history of how they came into the EU and all that stuff, some of the players surprised me at who did what and all that stuff. So it's yeah, it's really weird that a lot of the things, again, coming from a different place, you think in a certain part of the world that this is the way things are. Everything, whether it's just the history that you're told, basic history, nothing. Just stuff that we don't hear about, because in the Mediterranean, if we lived here, we would have learned this, but we didn't, because we lived here, we learned our own North American history. So and because of that, we have certain assumptions. So they have certain assumptions or cultural. So it's really interesting when you start traveling and really learning deeply about another culture, right? Even a culture similar, because Canada comes from Europe, you know what I mean? Even similar European. There's so many differences, and there's so many, and your perspective really changes, even on some things that you really thought were just kind of immovable facts before. But then you see you're in a different place and you know what I mean? If you're really paying attention and learning and reading and understanding the history and everything, you realize that the things you know and believe are because of where you were in the world sometimes.
Yeah, completely. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. One of the reasons why I love traveling is you get the sense of empathy by living somewhere or experiencing something new, whether that's short term just for travel or for a longer term, like living somewhere, or even by just talking to people who've got a different upbringing or a different diversity to what you have. And diversity is on a spectrum on so many different layers. It could be religion, it could be whatever you want it to be. But by just talking to someone and getting their lived experience up until now and the reasons why they've made certain choices up until now and you've made certain choices and going, well, that makes sense because
they saw things through this lens or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's completely that. It's exactly that. We've always been taught this is a priority for me growing up, was I may have had a different priority. So it's just based on what my priorities are and someone else makes them on theirs. And neither's right or wrong. It's just your own personal choice. So it's just it's a great way of understanding it more. And yeah, well, when you do see something in the news or you see something in life and you go, that's a bit odd, you might go, well, actually, no, what's the motive for doing it from their point of view? And it's a great way of understanding behaviors and cultures a lot more just by having that curiosity.
Yeah, like even when I was in Jamaica, I really noticed that too. I was in Jamaica for a work project like 4 years ago, and we were staying 6 years ago, pre-COVID, and we were staying up in the mountains where they tell you not to stay. They say don't leave the resort. Well, that would have been a horrible vacation. I would have hated Jamaica if I was still in the resort. We were staying up in a resort, but the community, not a resort, like a hotel the community built. And they were all really grateful that people came there to support their community. You know, they built with their own hands locally. The money wasn't going to the Hilton. It was going to, and late at night, we got past the Trulia, which is the North American tours. We were having like actual deep conversations with people and stuff like that, right? I got to things where like, even they might have a different opinion of me here than I did on something that at home I would have even argued about, maybe, you know what I mean? Like as a young activist getting, and then I thought, it's not my place to be here to tell this guy to come in here and tell him why he's wrong in whatever he's thinking because I disagree and I think this is more equal and more whatever. It's not really my place to come in here, especially me, as a white person coming into Jamaica, a land that we've devastated for hundreds of years. It's resource rich, but the people aren't because we've taken all that. So they live, at the poverty level where he's like trying to save up money for a tent to go have a little business in the hills where he can watch over his spices and make a couple $100. That's what he's talking about, and like for me to come in with a North American perspective and to be like, let me tell you where you are now, listen now, that just felt really wrong. So I just kept my mouth shut, whereas and I found other ways to address it, but in a different way, not an argumentative way, in a way that, hey, let me tell you about how this is my perspective, exactly like you said about perspective, telling a story a different way and telling something instead of arguing and coming in like a teacher telling you why you're wrong.
If only we can get our politicians to do that with each other, that would be useful because...
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know what it's like for you, but watching politicians in the news, it's all a lot of bickering and not a lot of, oh, well, that's an interesting point. Let me tell you my idea. Then you're wrong and you're stupid.
Sometimes, I guess, yeah, you got to listen to each other. And that's the thing. If we listen to them, we hear, sometimes we hear like maybe we're deal with the person instead of just like attacking what the thing is, all the time. Right?
Yeah, and people get labeled because of a certain facet of their life, whether it's political view or whatever, well, actually, no, it's much deeper than that.
And it may not even be the right picture of the person, right? It's just like...
Going back to Maltese life, then, the reason why we're here, what was it like in terms of the social life? How have you found socializing, though? Because you're working remotely for work all over the world, but not necessarily in Malta with Maltese colleagues. So what is your kind of network?
No, not at all with Malta. Yeah, I have no work. So yeah, it's been a challenge. So I've been like just really like in Gozo, my little tiny village here. I've just been like really making friends by not being over very high, just being really friendly. And what I found is like now it's starting at the neighbor ladies invited me to bingo and to go up to the Tapinu church with the other neighbor ladies and go do whatever they're outing is. So I've been like on it, even if bingo's not my thing, or normally I wouldn't go on an outing to a church. And that's what everybody's doing. Like they're inviting me, I'm in, right? And so I've been doing those kind of things. But then also some other things are starting to pop up now because I've been taking part of like in expats groups on Facebook and everything like that. And so I've been recently contacted a lady who does like, she's like, oh, I see you're in PR. And she goes, I do marketing and whatever else. Hey, maybe we can just go for coffee, not to do work together, just to like, because we're both expats in Malta. So now, and then she messaged me the other day and said there's something called Malta Ladies Who Latte or something. It's going to be a networking meetup. So I'm like, oh, sign me up. We're going to, so I'm starting to be told about these things. And my son's on the autism spectrum. He's like really high functioning in his 20s. But here I found that there's a lot of like, there's right away they were like, oh no, he's not alone. Come on in. We have all these programs and like social events and stuff. So we're just starting to investigate that. He's also volunteering. And the first thing we did when we came, I thought getting involved with the communities. He was looking for volunteering options. And so he started volunteering at the OSPCA, that's Ontario, the SPCA. So it's just, prevention of cruelty to animals, and goes and volunteers and walks dogs for them in the park in those zones. So there's always stuff like that you can do. Yeah. I also want some volunteer opportunities, and somebody said, oh, SPCA can always use people walking by. Oh, that's perfect. So we go and meet the people there, and then we hang out with the dog and walk around the park, and then, he's doing something. Yeah. So things like that is what I suggest to people. There's always volunteer opportunities everywhere. People think, oh, go to the bar. You can go to a bar too. You can go. There's always usually expat things if you go and look, especially now online, anywhere you are. If you just look for your expatriate community. I even saw there's some Canadians in Malta thing, and I joined it. But I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for other Canadians. If I meet one, it's fine. But I mean, I didn't come to Malta to hang out with other Canadians. Like I want to meet whoever I meet the world. I want to learn Maltese. It's a difficult language to learn, but if I ever wanted to get actual citizenship here 5 or 6 or 7 years down the road or whatever it is, yeah, you would have to have Maltese. You'd have to learn some Maltese.
So have you started taking classes then, or are you looking into that?
I've just recently, no, I haven't started it, but I literally was just looking at school opportunities for language, for Maltese language. And then also, I've also learned, which blows the North American mind, that not just citizens here, but residents apparently can go to school for free.
Yeah, so a lot of European countries have that, to be fair, I think.
I know, that's insane. That's what I'm saying. That's insane to us. In Canada, we thought we were doing better because we have healthcare unlike America, so we're always like, oh, we're great, we're not American, And then we come to Europe, we find out you guys you can send your kids to university for free. That literally is the life-changing thing of everything. Because at home in Canada, it's like, like especially for medical school or something, usually it's only the children of the elite or people who are already doctors. They're very, really restrictive and really hard to go. But here, like, or most European countries, you can just clean toilets for a living. And if your kid has got the will and the marks to go to medical school, they're a doctor. That is, you guys don't realize how like absolutely incredible and life-changing that is. That's what every parent, works their whole life for. And here it's just like, yeah, what do you want to go to school for? Go.
I think the UK is a bit in between. You still pay, but you pay the same no matter what. And if you are from a lower income family, you do get more support, but it's still not enough. And it's still, you have a second tax after your degree. So
that's how it is in Canada. Like there's grants and stuff, but then you've got to pay back the grants and everything. That's what it is in Canada. Here, not only is university and stuff free, unless once you get to your PhD, then you're going to pay $500 a year. Okay. But after PhD, it's free. And they pay you. They pay the student to go to school. Just a bit. I mean, I'm sure it's not much. But they're like, oh, you go to school. You need a little money. I'm like, what?
It's the same in Sweden.
I mean, it's good. It makes sense. You get an educated society. It's like, what's crazy is the way we do it in North America. But I'm like, why can't we have nice things at home?
That's why you're there and not at home.
Exactly. All these reasons.
Continuing on from like life in Malta, in terms of how have you found it from a food point of view? Obviously, in North America, it's quite an international culture, especially in Toronto and Ottawa. How is it in comparing that to Malta now in terms of
So I've been really surprised. There's nothing here that I can't get. Like they're really amazing. I'm really big on Middle Eastern food, and Toronto's one of my favorite things. We're really big on falafel and stuff. They have great Turkish food here. They have Chinese food, like North American style Chinese food restaurants, and actually like real. And also I've seen proper like Oriental, like actual Chinese food restaurant even too. I haven't seen. I've only the one thing that was a bit difficult was finding good Mexican. So I have looked around for that, and I've seen there's a place in Malta that's good. The one time I tried to order Mexican, that was really a big. In St. Julian's was okay. I tried to order Mexican the other day though. I don't know what it was, man, but it was like on. It was I've seen a lot of fusion. It was like advertised as a taco, but it was on like Middle Eastern flatbread.
But like pita bread.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a soft. It was supposed to be like a hard, like, and it didn't work even as a soft taco. It was just, I was like, no, I mean, we're not. But that's the only thing that hasn't been amazing. They have like incredible, everything. So I haven't looked for African food. I don't know if they have African. Again, we're really spoiled, like you said, in Toronto. We literally have like Ethiopian on our doorstep, but they have like lots. I mean, they have Indian food here. They have. So far, it was only Mexican that I was looking for and wasn't like super impressed with.
Have you tried a pasticci yet?
Oh yeah, I was missing that in Canada. I love there's the chicken pasticci, which is not so traditional, and there's the peas, which I really like, and the ricotta.
Yeah, it's like it's not the healthiest option, but it's
No, it's really greasy.
It's every street corner has.
Yeah, and then there's the bigula. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Bigula, have you ever had that? It's like hummus is similar. So it's like hummus is made out of chickpeas. So bigula is people survive over here for hundreds of years. I like it almost better. I love hummus, but it's like it's made out of broad beans instead of hummus, but it's like a brown. It's basically a hummus, but it's a different kind, like a thicker thing, and it's brown colored. It's usually lots of olive oil, and they eat it with little crackers. But yeah, that's a big Maltese thing, big lot. Or the Golzeton cheeselets for like a €1.10. It's like insane. You get like a big piece of cheese like this, and it's all like traditionally it was goat's cheese and unpasteurized, but a lot of them now are made with cow's milk, and you have to look to see if they're pasteurized or not. From North America, I always look and make sure it's pasteurized because,
That's the weird thing as well. Pasteurized milk is never an issue in Europe. It's never been a joke or anything, because I watched Schitt's Creek, and the whole episode was about them like going around with them pasteurized milk, and I'm like, I don't think we really worry about that.
So yeah, it's probably not a thing. It's probably a thing that because I mean, if anything, because the food regulations are way better here usually. Like I mean, it's so I'm sure they're not going to be so. But yeah, so they have, and the funny thing is too, the food prices have gone way up crazy in North America, like nuts. Like at home, it's like $4 for a loaf of bread, which is like $3 American, or €3, like here I'm paying like €1 for a loaf of bread, €1.10 for milk. And they were complaining that it was too high until the government just did a whole thing with the government, blah, 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 and fixed the prices of all the local things and reduced it by 15%. I'm like, because it was too high at €1.10. So all the local things, like anything locally produced, like bread, milk, all that stuff is really super reasonable to me. Anything American, like all the name brands, is about what I would be paying in Canada, or maybe even a little bit less, but more expensive than the Maltese stuff. And a lot of the stuff comes from Sicily and it's well priced. And yeah, so but there's they have really good food. They have a lot of like really high end restaurants for like €18. The other day I had chicken breast stuffed with brie and strawberries. At home, I don't know how much that would be, right? Like high €18. And that came with a bunch of roast potatoes and a whole bunch of, so the food is really good. And also crime. Can we talk about how there's no crime, like on this, there's no street crime. There's no homeless people. I don't know what's going on in North America, what we're doing wrong, but like we have a lot of unhoused people, and it's like increasingly more so. And we have like fentanyl problem going nuts. Like any street in North America now is like actually disturbingly scary. Really in Hamilton, Toronto, all these places are since COVID, just gone crazy. I can see here's like a dramatic difference. You walk around the streets 4 a.m, you feel safe. It's insane. Like it's really crazy.
That's that's a really good point. I think you do see the homeless in Northern Europe. I think it's more. In Sweden, I saw quite a lot of it. In Hamburg, I saw a fair bit of it as well. In the UK, depends on where you are, but there's often a lot of homeless people. Yes, it's COVID and a lot of things have gone wrong. Really, there's no support network. Whereas I think a lot of Mediterranean countries seem to do it a lot better.
Yeah, like I'm literally saying, how is it this little rock in the Mediterranean with no natural resources? That's this like 15 by whatever 30 can like because I'm saying, where are your homeless? And they say, oh well, the government would come and take it. And I'm like, well, How is it, like, honestly, like, wait, in Canada, where it goes to be -20 in Hamilton right now, and I live in a nice area, like a nice area, upscale, and across the street now there's a park, and we're starting to get homeless tents in the park, and the government's not coming in and helping people and homing them. They're saying, oh, don't put your tent too close to the other tent, and that's where it's -20. So how is it that in a country like Canada, full of rich in natural resources, rich in land, rich in oil, rich in space, rich in wood, like, I mean, how is it that we have so many homeless people suffering and dying in -20 in the streets? And here, where it would be comfortable, you could be out there sleeping and you're not going to die in Malta. No, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. Something is wrong. Again, politicians need to travel more and like get out of their little. Because if I was a politician, I'd come here, I'd be like, okay, we've got to fix. I don't know what we're doing rather than home, but like,
take some notes. Yeah.
It's crazy. And again, this is like a developing country still. 25 years ago, they were still sending people, like they were going to Libya to work because there was no work here. Pre-European Union, they were a lot different. I was just reading this book. They got color television in 1990. They got unions in the 70s. They got libraries. This blew my mind when I read the book. Like unions in the 70s, they got libraries in the 80s. They got color TV in the 90s. And yet, now they're taking care of better of all their population, better than Canada. They had the corruption, the government, and the Daphne thing, and so no place is perfect. There's always stuff going on. But now I have more of an understanding of that. This is not Canada. This is a new, as much as it's a thousands of years old country, it's a baby democracy too. It's only new. It's still only growing, so.
Yeah, completely. When you brought your family over, your parents, how did they find it? What was their impressions of it as well?
So my mom just fell in love with it like me. She's always messaging that she wants to go back. And my dad was like an old school Canadian guy. He was like, I wasn't sure with him as everything always like, I always got something to say about everything a little different. He was funny. He was like, I've never been a foreigner before. I was like, it looks good on you. and he started, now he's like checking the news in Malta all the time from Canada. He'll message me and tell me what's in the news in Malta. Oh, I see this happened. Or you'll be checking the weather or whatever. They both want to come back. They're all like super comfortable with it now. But again, my dad having come here and become comfortable with it, we wanted our parents to see where we are and that it's not some crazy, we wanted to have I'm a mom too, and I'd like to get to where my daughter is. I have to know that they're cool. So now both our parents they all have an understanding of where we are and what the life is like. And day to day, it's like, it really feels like home. It's different as it is from Canada, so different in every way. It's also so like quickly that it just felt like home, and it just, it just fall into the rhythm here, and it's easy too. I mean, we have Bolt and we have Uber, so those apps make life, when you're a newbie, right? Those things make life easy because it's just the same as at home. You land at the airport. Oh, all right, bring me there. So these things, Bolt, Uber, they don't have Uber Eats. Instead of Uber Eats, it's Bolt Food and Wolt. But, you can become comfortable in the modern world pretty quickly just by having.
Do you have a car, or have you rented a car whilst being there?
No, we don't drive. And my husband wants to get his license here, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if people who've been to Malta will understand. I mean, it's tiny little narrow roads, and some of the roads are like not quite as bad as Jamaica, but like they look like one-way roads, but they're two-way roads. So they're just driving along until they're like this. And then one of them has to back up and let the other car go. And so it's like, I don't know. I'm not confident. And plus it's the other side of the street road, or the other side of the car from Canada with a wheel. So I don't know. I think it's a small island. And number one, Wolts and Bolts, like, one side of the island to the other would be €28. And most things would be like €7 or €8. And buses, now that we're residents, I never take it because I'm always busy working. But my husband likes to take the bus a lot. And now that we're residents, we can get the Talinga card, which is free. Anybody who lives here can get a free bus pass. And so 90% of your transit and your bus, there's like one or two night routes that you would pay $1 or $2 for, but most of the buses are free, unless if you're in rush hour going on the main island. I hear it can be, a bit of a nightmare, but so could traffic be on the main island. So you don't want to be in rush hour if you can avoid it. Malta, so you work from home. Nice. It's a very small island with a lot of cars.
Is there anything else you want to talk about being there before we go on to the next section?
No, I guess that's about it. Is it's just, again, it's fun. Just the difference in Like even the young people, like we keep talking about how New Year's Eve, there was like all these young guys out there and they're all dressed, hanging out with each other. Like they weren't even with girls or their parents or anything. Just big groups of kids and they're all in tuxes. We're like, what is going on? I don't understand these well-mannered youth. It's just crazy. It's hurting my brain. So yeah, I don't know. And a lot of things, it feels different that way, but anyway.
Well, we'll be returning section 2 and we'll see you in section 3. So hello and welcome to section 3 of the podcast. And this bit's kind of a review of your time. So Tracy, if you could go back to when you first started moving or first started looking into the process of moving, and you can give us some sort of advice which would help you in terms of what you know now, what might that be?
Just to get on it like right away. Don't even let a minute go to waste, because when you're going through this bureaucracy, especially if you're like I was under the 90 days out of 180 as a Canadian or non-EU. So in EU, I have 90 days in 180. So after 90 days, I have to be out of here or I'm overstaying. So we were really lucky, really lucky. It was like with a little help from our friends to get our appointment, really, because otherwise my 90 days would have easily run out without me been able to present any of these paperwork that I had so meticulously compiled. And then I would have to go back to Canada, wait 3 months and fly all that expensive flight all over here again. And again, start an email trying to, so, it's really, really difficult sometimes and there's not a lot of mercy in the office. They just have a whole bunch of people to get through. And so, yeah, you've got to, I would say if you can start the paperwork, I should have started it at home instead of starting it here. I waited till I got here and then I started compiling it. I didn't think it would be as labor intensive, and then I didn't think it would take as long to get that appointment. But like we were like pushing it. So yeah, if anything you can do it, like research it in advance, and like anything that you can do beforehand and double, triple check that you have every single thing, because they'll send you back home or they won't, if you needed something apostille and you never heard of that, well, you better figure it out fast.
That's a very good piece of advice in terms of just getting all your ducks in the line as early as possible.
Sounds basic, but no, you got to really.
Or would you move somewhere? There's so many exciting things that completely distract you, and you can procrastinate so much easier because you're there, aren't you? And you're like, oh, but I want to go visit this place, or I need to go try this food, I need to go try this restaurant, I need to go, see this show, or go watch some opera, or go see Joseph Calais or something. In Malta's there's so many new fun things to do, which just take your energy away from actually I need to do this bit of bureaucracy in order to stay here longer than I want to. Which, I think it's a very good bit of advice, and so I probably should have done as well before I moved, which I didn't do. And then I was always waiting for a long time for my residence card to come. But anyway, if you could give some advice to someone who's leaving Canada in terms of if they're moving somewhere in the world, what bit of advice would you give them?
Make sure you got your, I had never heard till I left Canada about this, the apostille thing that I referred to, but that way all of your documents, like in Europe, for example, they want, if you have a marriage certificate or a birth certificate that's from outside of the EU, they want it to be apostilled. Well, we don't have that in Canada, so I didn't know what that was, but we do have an alternative, which is getting it authorized and verified. Well, it took a lot till I finally figured out that I could go to Ireland, and I lucked into within a couple of days, I was able to get the Irish embassy to do it for me. But I should have really had that done, because I could have been sent back to Canada to get that done. And if I had been sent back to Canada, I would have had to stop everything, and then it's like a 30-day, guys, Canadians, you have to get before you leave the country, reach out to the agency. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the government agency that deals with international driver's licenses as well. And you need to get your birth certificate and your marriage certificate, any documents like that, you have to get verified, because once you leave the country, you won't be able to do it. And now I think we've just signed on to the UN treaty about apostille, so now I think you can get the apostille. But that's super, super important. Do not just take your document thinking that it'll do. It won't, because they have never seen those Canadian documents before, so they need that verification.
That's really, that's a really good bit of advice, I think, for sure. Do your research of what the other country needs from you, and I'm sure there's probably loads of resource online, or I think I use a lot of it, the gov.uk help for me, probably the equivalent in Canada, which it just give you some advice to moving to different countries or traveling to different countries. It's not the most extensive, but it's a good starting point for you then to continue finding more information for sure. If you could, or what would be your kind of next adventure? And do you plan to stay in Malta for the foreseeable, or?
Yeah, so we plan to stay in Malta for now. We only came here with a few bags, though, so we do have to get back to Canada at some point, and we have to go before we go to the Cannes Film Festival. So we're heading up. We're publicists, so we're heading up we just got our accreditation, which is huge in the industry, for our third Cannes, and that's the mid to end of May. So by then, we have to have gone back home where we have our entire Cannes wardrobe, so my husband can get his Armani tux, which all this matters of Cannes. So he's got to grab all that stuff, which was a huge investment for the first one. So, we're certainly not going to go buy another one. So we're going to go back to Canada and grab all our wardrobes. Hopefully more stuff to bring here. So we're each going to max out the number of suitcases we can bring, like, 2-3 suitcases each, pack it full of stuff, bring it to our house here. So most of our stuff is still in Canada, and then go to Cannes Film Festival for 2 weeks, then come back here to Malta for about a month. And we haven't decided if this will be our first Malta summer, because here last year it went up to like 45 degrees. I've never dealt with that before. That might be a good time to go visit my grandson in Canada. I don't know.
We can go to Ireland perhaps for your
Yeah, see, it might be Ireland, or that might be when we go see Northern Europe too, or maybe we go and visit, do like Rome, and because that's another great thing about being here. It's like, you guys know, in Europe, 40 euro, 30 euro, you can go to another European capital on EasyJet or whatever you call it, on the Ryanair and stuff like that. So we want to take advantage of being here and just like travel everywhere while we're here. So yeah, Malta for the foreseeable future. We love it. Like, this feels like home. I don't have any plan to leave unless they kick me out. So
yeah, I know you go to Eastern, you can get an Interrailing card still potentially, an EU rail card, so you can do like 15. I did one this summer to travel back from Sweden to the UK, where it's out of 5 days of train journeys to use within 15 days. So I took a train from Gothenburg through to London. Well, you can do it through a lot of Europe, and it was about 500 euros. I think less than that, about 300 euros
that's
to do.
perfect. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's a great way to see stuff. So
yeah, I had done a Euro pass when I was like 21, like again, 30 years ago. I totally forgot about that. We had like the 30 days and 2 months or something like that. Like, to do the whole, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But there's one that you're in Europe, you can get the EU one. So it's a bit different to like your Interrail card. So it's worth checking it out.
Very cool. All right.
And then I guess lastly, was there anything have you experienced much homesickness? And if so, what's your kind of remedy for that? Have you just been able to call your family, or?
Oh yeah, I miss them. I miss my daughter and my grandson for sure. I was there. So my dad has been, ever since he's come here, he's been literally messaging me like every single day. He's been emailing me, "Hi, how are you?" and stuff. So he'd been like really, I think he's really, even though in Canada we live an hour away from each other and we didn't talk that much. Well, he would come and visit me every month or something, and we didn't talk every day. But I think now it's weighing on him that I'm so far a world away. So because of that, he's like, try to communicate more. So we've been actually back and forth every morning. He messaged me, I tell him what I'm doing. So we've actually been talking way more than we did at home. And my daughter and I, we always do when she's, we talk all the time. So whether when she was traveling, when I was at home, like she'd be at her husband, to be family, then we meet Zooming all the time. So, and my 2.5-year-old grandson, he's not so good on Zoom anymore. He's too busy. He doesn't care. But at least I get to see him and watch him play and stuff. And yeah, but in terms of homesick, that's missing people, and they all want to come back here. So my dream is for them to come here with me. But in terms of missing Canada, I'm not really. I'm here for a reason. It's not that I don't. I love my country. I'm glad I could always go back to it. I'm glad it's there, but I don't really miss it. I'm too busy looking at palm trees in the Mediterranean.
You don't miss you watching the ice hockey matches?
Never do that. Never been about skating. I've never been about any of that stuff. So
not lumberjacking.
I'm not missing the snow. I'm not missing the lumberjacking. No, I'm good without all of that. I'm good. I'm not even missing poutine.
All the stereotypes coming out now. You can get poutine in the UK or in Europe as well. It's asked for chips, cheese, and gravy. It's the same thing.
Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah. Good point. Just be like, here's what you do. Got me some fries. You got some cheese, sprinkle cheese on, then got gravy, right? Good, thank you. I don't care what you call it. That's what I want. I don't eat that much anyway because that's really, really like overloaded with salt and shit. So, it's not really my...
It's the 2 a.m. you're being out drinking all night.
I've enjoyed a poutine after with my time, though, for sure.
Is there anything else you wish to share about your life abroad? Because I think we've covered quite a lot of topics and no more questions from my side.
That's about it. Other than like, people always say, enjoy your vacation. And I'm always like, listen, I run a company. I own a company. I can't be on vacation anywhere I go. If I take 3 hours off, it's a big deal and I'm catching up. So, this is how I do that. I still work like out and then I run a company, global clients, tons of clients. I got a lot of things to do on my to-do list. But how do I do it and still go out and I still go out and do all the Mediterranean things and swim and whatever? So I managed to I get up at like 8 in the morning. I start working like 8 in the morning and then I work till like, noon. And then around noon or 1, I go out till like 3 or 4. So I have like 3 hours middle of the day when I could go swimming, I could go to the beach, I could go shopping, I could do all the tours, I could do all kinds of things. And then I can be right back in my desk, and then I work from like whatever time I get back to my desk 4 until like 8 or till 9 or 10, 11, 12, depending on what I'm doing and how many deadlines I have or whatever. So I usually work like a 5 or 6 hour shift in the morning and then I take off for like 3-4 hours and then I work another 5 or 6 hours. I was still doing minimum, 12-hour shifts. I mean, I'm my own company.
The split shift.
Yeah, split. But I'm at my desk, so I split it up with do whatever I want to do wherever I'm at and, still enjoy what I'm doing.
Incredible. Wow. What a great way to end the podcast. And thank you, Tracy, for spending your time just talking to me and using some of your time in your day or your very busy schedule to share your story with everyone listening. And if you did enjoy the podcast, you did find some little information which has helped you or has provided some answers, then please do let us know in the comments. Please do get in touch. I'm sure we can answer some more questions if we need to. And always, please subscribe and please share it with your friends who might also be looking for opportunities to move abroad. And we'll see you next time for the Expat Pod.